How does MrBeast get 40 million views per video for the last 18 videos? And many more of his videos get 20 or 30 million views on each video. So I had the pleasure of going to the VidSummit conference a week or so ago, and MrBeast was one of the keynote speakers. So he was talking about the growth of his channel. So upon reflection of that, I thought I'd talk about some of the ways that he grows his YouTube channel, or some of the things he does on his YouTube channel that would be worthy for myself and all of you to know about, because it's always good to look at successful channels, especially ones that have grown fast over the last few years. I think he started his channel in maybe 2013 or something like that, and now it's got 25 million. Now he's got 25 million subscribers. So just keep in mind that maybe your channel, like mine, doesn't cover the same content, doesn't do the same content as he does, but there's some great lessons that we can learn that we can apply to our own channels. So my name is Drost, and my channel is all about how to grow your audience on YouTube so you can generate traffic, leads, and sales on autopilot. Because as MrBeast does, and as a lot of us does, we use YouTube as a great search engine, that if we get videos ranked in the search engines or promoted by YouTube, they can generate traffic, leads, and sales 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, year after year. So that's a beautiful thing about YouTube. So I want to welcome everybody here. We've got Simplistic Beauty Photography. Harley, good to see you again. Retired and Prepping. And we've got other people coming on board. So without further ado, I just want to go into some of the stats. So I'm going to go to my slides here. And oh, hi, good to see you, Prince. And so the question is, how does MrBeast get 14 million views per YouTube video? And let's look at some of his stats. He currently has 25 million subscribers and 5 billion video views on his channel. And for his last 18 videos, he's got 14 million views. And even every video in the past year, and I think he does like 3 videos a week, 2 or 3 videos a week, they each have got over 10 million views. And I didn't really know him before attending the video conference, and probably many of you don't know him either, but he basically gives away a lot of money, and he makes a lot of money from AdSense ads on his videos, but also a lot of people approach him for brand deals, sponsorships, etc. So I'm sure he makes way more money from that than from what YouTube gives him. But here's just some of the different videos that he does. So I think his latest one was "Let's Take the Hand Off the Boat," keeps it, dumpster diving, 100 dumpsters, going through the same drive-through 1,000 times, donating 100,000 to random streamers, surviving 24 hours straight in a rainforest, least to leave ramen noodle pool wins 20,000. So he does a lot of these crazy things. And as you can see, there's a lot of crazy thumbnails, but without having great thumbnails, then nobody's going to watch your video. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But I just thought I'd show you that, these are the last 18 videos that got over 14 million views. And as you can see, some got 22 million, 18 million, 13 million, 32 million. So pretty crazy, isn't it? And here's some of his analytical history taken from Social Blade. So you can see from January 17th to September 19th of this year, his channel's rapidly grown. So this number of views got over, well, let's see, that's 200 million views there. And then monthly gained subscribers. So he's easily making, getting over 1 million subscribers, new subscribers. And here you can see the daily averages. So got 16,000 subscribers daily, 16,000 subscribers a day. Wow, I'd really like to have that. And you got 5 billion views, I guess it is. And then you can see how much money he's making here too. This is in the period 9/26 to 10/25. So basically 1 month, he's making a lot of money. So you got the daily averages, so about $1 to $21,000. Weekly averages, $9 to $148,000. 30 days, $39,634. Yearly estimate, $475,000 to $7.6 million. So pretty good. And the big question, well, he actually always talks about keeping things simple. So one of the big questions is always to ask yourself is, what does YouTube want? Basically, YouTube wants you to click on a video and watch the video, preferably all the way through. So that's simply what YouTube wants. They want you to see the thumbnail in the search engines and click on the thumbnail and then watch the video. So according to MrBeast, the 3 most important metrics are the click-through rate, the average view duration, and the average view percentage. So videos with a high click-through rate and a high average view duration do really well. So if people click on your video and they only watch a little bit of your video, then it's not going to be promoted much in the search engines. So according to YouTube, you've got to pay close attention to the first 15 seconds of every video. So that's mostly when the viewers drop off. So I would say when it comes to making your videos, you need to have a good hook at the beginning. So, and we'll talk a bit later about what MrBeast does, but if you find that people click on your thumbnail, then start watching your video, but then they click off within the first 15-20 seconds, then it's most likely that your video is not going to be promoted in the search engines. It's not going to appear on YouTube suggested videos. So therefore, you might think about trying different hooks, maybe asking a question, maybe teasing the viewers about what's coming up next, maybe provide something entertaining like MrBeast. If you watch any of his videos, you can see right away at the very beginning, he might show immediately what the video is about, and then a lot of action going on throughout the video. So it kind of resets the attention of the viewer and also entertains the viewer. So I'm not saying that you should necessarily entertain people if you're doing a talking head video, but the type of videos that he's creating is really like, I guess, shock value. So a lot of people, they like to be entertained on YouTube. So I think it's very entertaining. His thumbnails are also very, very bold, as we'll see later. But I think the first 15 seconds, just to stress that, is very crucial. If you can get people to watch, the first 15, 20 seconds or first 60 seconds, then it's more likely that they're going to watch the rest of your video. So you're going to have a high audience retention and a high average view duration. So how can you improve your click-through rate, average view duration, and average view percentage? For MrBeast, he emphasizes the titles, thumbnails, and the content. So we're going to dive more deeply into that as we go through here, but titles very important, thumbnails very important, and the content. When people watch your video, then ideally, if you can get them to come back or watch more videos, watch successive videos in a row. So what was a viewer's last experience with your content? It was a good experience, then they'll want to subscribe and want to come back and watch more of your content. So if your click-through rate drops when the video is promoted, it's good to have a high click-through rate, but that's not the full story. You can get a lot of activity on your video, and if you get a lot of activity on your video, the click-through rate will drop. But a high click-through rate, can come from your initial subscribers. So when you first publish a video, then you might get a high click-through rate, but then it will drop as the subscribers have already watched your video, and then non-subscribers will start watching it. So it's a high probability that click-through rate is going to drop after it's first published. So what makes a great title? And this is one of the things that MrBeast emphasized, and I think this is a really great point, is to keep your titles under 50 characters. Why is that? Because if you look on your phone, then the title gets cut off after 50 characters. So on my last video, when I was, my last video was about the SwitchPod review, and I think the title was something like Best Travel Tripod in 2020. So initially, I had a long title, which was over 50 characters. So I shortened it based upon knowing that the title would be chopped off when looked on the phone. And another point is to start with a good punchline. So, for instance, this little thumbnail here, surviving 24 hours on a deserted island. I mean, what if you had a title, 3 guys hanging out at the beach? It's not going to be so exciting. But when you see, and maybe he set this up, having the title surviving 24 hours on a deserted island is much more inspiring than, say, 3 guys hanging out at the beach. So putting a good punchline at the beginning of your title is great. Another thing is to study other viral videos. So when it comes to videos that are doing well, like you study MrBeast or his videos or other creators in your niche, look at the ones that are doing really well, and maybe some of the videos are going viral. Then study their titles, study their thumbnails, study how the video is capturing the attention of the viewers, and then try, don't try to copy them, but try to implement some of those lessons in your own videos. So so GMC has said, I spent 4 years to get 1 million views. Yeah, I know it can be really tough to get a lot of views. When you look at MrBeast, he's getting millions of views on each video. It can be disheartening, but you have to keep in mind that you're not in the same niche, and he may be doing things that you are not doing. But that's why it's good to study people like MrBeast and see how he can implement some of those same lessons. Another point is having a strong opinion in your title makes it more interesting. So an example is that he gave was, you could have a title like "Why I Don't Like Bananas" versus "Why Bananas Are the Worst Food to Ever Eat." So which one would you more than likely click on? You definitely wouldn't click on "Why I Don't Like Bananas" when you see the other one, "Why Bananas Are the Worst Food You Could Ever Eat." So, and I think this is a good lesson too, is always get a second opinion on your title. I think this was a big takeaway for me. I kind of knew it, but when somebody else emphasizes it, then it makes sense. But sometimes you kind of fall in love with your thumbnail or fall in love with your title, and you think this is going to be really great, and then the video flops. So ask your wife, ask a friend, maybe ask in a Facebook group. Just get a second or third opinion about your video, because sometimes when you create your video, you're so involved with your video, involved with your thumbnail, that you can't see it in a more objective fashion. And a great example was at the video conference, there was a person called Pat Flynn who was into podcasting, and he came out with this product. So I did a review of SwitchPod in the last video, but he talked about, let's see, put this over here. So he talked about when he developed the SwitchPod, that of course he loved, he saw that there was a need beyond the Joby GorillaPod, that some people were kind of frustrated with it breaking, and you had to always straighten the legs to make it stable on the desk, after wrapped it around the tree or something, or using it in different places, and it wasn't very sturdy. That he felt there was a need for a different kind of tripod. So he didn't just create the product and hope for the best, but he kept on getting validation from the public. So he'd keep on asking his friends and putting it out on the net, what would this work, would that work? And then people would continually tell him, you could improve this, you could make it fold up quickly, you could make the legs out of steel or aluminium. So you got different ideas. So the big lesson here is sometimes very easy to just fall in love with your idea or your video, your thumbnail, without checking if there's a second opinion. So I think going forward, I'm probably going to ask my wife, hey, what do you think about this title or this thumbnail or whatever? But that's a great lesson, developing a product or developing your videos. So always get that second opinion. So what makes a great thumbnail? And I'll put an example here. I don't know if you can see it very well, but MrBeast says create multiple versions. And I try to do this with my thumbnails. I try to make like 2 or 3 different versions of the thumbnail, then I'll split test them. Or sometimes if you're a member of the Facebook group, then I'll put the images in the Facebook group and say which one would you choose, 1 or 2 or 3, etc. But I think the idea of creating multiple versions of your thumbnail is good, and to get feedback on your thumbnails. MrBeast, what MrBeast does, he spends a lot of time on his thumbnails. And I was watching a video, I think this morning, on a person that was talking about thumbnails, and they suggested that you even batch your thumbnails. You know, spend a whole day doing different, taking different photos of yourself, different expressions, etc., and then do a whole day or a whole morning or several hours batching your video thumbnails, so you can just pick and choose which one you want to put in your video. But for me, I try to take different, when I'm creating the thumbnail, when I'm creating the video, I might take a screenshot of the video, or I might take a separate picture, while I'm doing the video. Then I'll switch over to photography mode and take a picture with the camera, so it's like a fresh picture instead of just a screenshot. But you can do it either way. You can batch produce your thumbnails. You could take it while you're filming your video. But I think the bottom line is to create several different versions, maybe get a second opinion, and then ultimately you want to split test your thumbnails. And then oftentimes what you think was a good one is not as good as the variation when you split test it. So your variation might be better. And then you could also produce another thumbnail, as long as you're getting traffic to your video, and see if that one does even better, so you can raise your click-through rate. And if you raise your click-through rate, then YouTube will surface more of your videos on YouTube, to the audience on YouTube. So he also combines different images. So he might get an image, say like in this thumbnail that you see here, his video got 44 million views 5 months ago. He just took a picture, I guess, of all this, whatever it is, groceries. And so he might have taken a picture of that, and he layered himself in the groceries. So you could try taking different images and putting them in your thumbnail, layering them in your thumbnail. Or you could go the other way and just make a very simple background. And that's what I tend to do. I tend to click on very simple thumbnails that do not have too much clutter in them. But so I think it's going to vary based upon the niche that you're in. Another point was test your thumbnail before uploading. So he has this method. Well, first he says that the suggested thumbnail on your phone is very, very small. So if you look at your phone, the thumbnails are going to be very tiny. I was going to show you something on my phone. I've got to turn off the airplane mode. Let me see. So I can capture something for you. Whoops.
Thank you for that. I needed
that. Okay, let me show you quickly for the sake of this video. I don't know if you can see it here, but you can see these tiny thumbnails. That's like, the suggested videos under the video. So what he's saying is to take a screenshot of the thumbnails that are on your phone, and then the thumbnail that you create, you kind of put it on top of those thumbnails and shrink it down to the size of those thumbnails that are on the phone. Or maybe if you can take a picture of your competitors' thumbnails, and then you can layer, put in your computer, in your editing software, which you create thumbnails with. I think Canva has a way that you can shrink the thumbnail, but the idea is to put on top of those suggested thumbnails, so it's going to be really tiny, and then you can see how it looks in a very tiny size. So the big lesson here is when you create your thumbnail, it's going to be, in YouTube, it's kind of pretty large. Desktop, it's going to be a certain size. But when you view it on your phone, it's going to be very tiny, especially in the suggested videos. So design your thumbnails so they still look good in suggested on your mobile phone. Okay, moving right along. I'm going to go back to your questions when I finish the presentation, so I kind of stay on track here. But so the idea is to take a screenshot of the home page, where your thumbnails are, then Photoshop, or if you're using some other software, Photoshop your thumbnail over your competitors' thumbnails. So the idea is to really double your click-through rate in suggested. So if you get a high click-through rate, there's a higher probability that your video is going to appear in suggested videos. Another point is that your title and thumbnail should match to show as much emotion as possible. So when you create your thumbnail, think about your title, and if you can put if you put your face in the thumbnail, maybe have some expression there. Ideally, you want to have people kind of curious about what's really happening in the thumbnail, or maybe, make them want to think, I wonder what he's talking about. So in that case, you could add some text. You could try with text, you could try without text. So in this thumbnail you're looking at now from MrBeast, he doesn't have any text, but in his title, he said, I bought everything in a store. So that obviously the thumbnail shows that, he bought everything in the store. So you want your title and your thumbnail to match and show as much emotion as possible. Another point is to recognize patterns. So look at your videos that have a high click-through rate. You can do this by going into YouTube Analytics, and I think it's the Reach tab in YouTube Studio Beta, and you can look at your click-through rate of your thumbnail of your video, and you can also go, if you click on the I think see more, then you can also arrange your videos, all your videos on your channel, or maybe 20 or 50 of them, to see which ones have the highest click-through rate, and study those ones on your channel that have a high click-through rate, and maybe try to do a similar type of thumbnail, because that, and probably I looked at this a few days ago, And my videos that have a high click-through rate also have done well as far as attracting a lot of traffic. So study the videos on your channel that have a high click-through rate. Maybe try to do a similar thumbnail and see if you can improve. Even if you can improve the click-through rate by like 1%, then that can be a big growth factor for your videos in your channel. On Harley has a good tip here. Morning Fame is a thumbnail tool that shows it in all different sizes too, as well as comparing it to the competition. Yeah, so Morning Fame is a tool that you can. It's a good keyword research tool. It's a paid tool, but I think I have a video. On that where I compare Morning Fame to TubeBuddy, but I use both. But yeah, it shows you the different sizes for on your laptop, on your computer, on the phone, on a tablet, etc. Then you can also compare it, in dark mode versus light mode, etc. So that's and you can do it very quickly. So thanks for that, Harley. So recognize the patterns, the patterns that the videos that have a high click-through rate. Another point he mentioned was about blurring irrelevant space. So say you have like two images that are in your thumbnail, you can have different layers. So maybe the background image, maybe you have like, the background image could be distracting from yourself. So maybe you want to blur the background image, or if you're using 3 different images, you could blur the background image to make yourself stand out. So the whole idea of blurring something is that you want to make yourself, if you're in the thumbnail, make yourself prominent. So you could make yourself bigger and then have the background kind of smaller, or if you're putting objects in your thumbnail, you could have that in the background. Or if you're say you're promoting a product, like this, you could have this very prominent, like in the foreground, and then you like in the background, so your product stands out. So I think the same when sometimes what I do is when I cut myself out of a photograph, out of a photo, and so I can then go into Canva or go into Thumbnail Blaster, which use that program too, and you can then put yourself in the foreground. You can move yourself around. You can put yourself towards the back, towards the front. But the whole idea is you can move your image to the left, to the right, to the back, to the front, and then you can have the background moving forward or object coming forward, etc. So I think that's a great way that you can sort of layer your thumbnails with different, what makes it stand out. So eVapors has said that TubeBuddy has been great for me. I'm 1 month in, so my use is limited. Yeah, so actually, if any of you want to get TubeBuddy, you can go to tubebuddy.com/iSiteBuild. And if you use Herman's Buddy at checkout, you can get 20% off on a paid upgrade, pro version. Or if you want to split test your thumbnails, you can use the Legend version. But before when you go to checkout, use Herman's Buddy to get 20% off, and that'll reduce your monthly cost. Another point about your thumbnails is only use text when necessary. Oh, hi Frank, good to see you. So in MrBeast thumbnail, as you can see here, he doesn't have any text. Let me check further up. I'll go to this one. Let's check some other ones. So these all have over 40 million views, and you can see that most of his thumbnails don't have text, but you have like the first one is like day 2, and yeah, so most of them don't have text. So you might want to experiment with not having text in your thumbnail. Like my last thumbnail, I tried not putting text in it. I don't know what the click-through rate is as yet. So yeah, try to use only text when necessary, and ask yourself, does it add a clickable factor when you add it in the thumbnail? So before you add the text, you want to ask that question. Is that going to help your viewers want to click on the thumbnail? If it's not obvious in the picture, probably the picture should tell a story by itself. But if you're going to put text in your thumbnail, make sure it's large and bold and in contrast to your background colors, and only use like 2 or 3 words. So in Canva, you can do that really easily. You can quickly enlarge it, you can quickly shrink it, you can change the font, you can change the size, but I would say only use 1 or 2 different fonts instead of using 3 or 4 different fonts. But only use it when necessary. And another point is, and I mentioned this already, is the thumbnail should visually explain the title. So, and a lot of people do this, is that, and the other point, less text, the better. So what I generally do, and a lot of YouTubers recommend this, is even, when you go to create your video, think about the thumbnail first. Think about what image you want to present to your viewers. So, and MrBeast talked about this too. Is before you upload your thumbnail, try to see how it looks on the mobile phone. So instead of leaving the thumbnail as an afterthought, like after you create your video, say, oh, I forgot the thumbnail, let me quickly do a thumbnail. So then it's like an afterthought. But what about reverse your thinking and do the thumbnail first and then create the content, shoot the video, etc. So I think the idea behind this, and I've kind of experimented with this, sometimes when I do the thumbnail first, then as I'm going through the content, I'm thinking, oh, maybe I should change my thumbnail to reflect the image, to reflect more deeply what my content is about, instead of just as an afterthought throwing the thumbnail up after I've created the video. So you might want to think about that, creating 2 or 3 different versions of your thumbnail before you create your actual video. But let me ask you a question. Do you create your thumbnails before you shoot the video, or do you create your thumbnails after the video is done and you've uploaded your video, or after you've uploaded your video to YouTube? So which camp are you in, before you create content or after you've finished creating your content? Put your answer in the chat, or if you're watching the replay, put it in the comments. So your thumbnail should visually explain the title. Only use text when necessary. Blur out the irrelevant space in your thumbnails. Recognize different patterns. Try to show some emotion, the title and the thumbnail matching to show emotion, and get a second opinion and create multiple versions. Okay, we've got a couple of answers here. We'll put that up on the board here. Go back to the other mode. So let's see, we've got Evapors says, I create the thumbnail during, usually feel a certain moment and take the high quality picture at that moment. Yeah, that's a great idea. So looks like you might get inspiration while you're creating your video. And sometimes I do that too. I find that while I'm creating the videos, wow, that would be a great idea for a thumbnail. Harley's saying, I create the thumbnail after the content before uploading. So yeah, I think everybody has different ideas, but I've tried before and after. Sometimes, you know, I spend maybe an hour after I've uploaded the thumbnail, after I've uploaded the video, and then I'll, you know, kind of focus on the thumbnail. But I've also done it before. So I think there's no right or wrong way, but, you know, whatever really works for you. And Frank's saying that, oh, okay. If you ever say, yes, I feel inspiration during. And then Frank has said that I used to like to add a screen grab, so after shooting. Yes, there's quite a bit of variety there, but you know, each to his own. I think, you know, whatever works best for you. Another factor that has contributed to 14 million views per video for MrBeast is audience retention. So audience retention helps you to see how often each moment of your video is being watched as percentage of the total views. So you can have a audience retention that is even higher than 100% if people rewind and rewatch the videos. So if you have an audience retention that is above 100%, say it's 101, 102%, you might think, what the heck's going on? Well, that's actually a result, and it's a good result of people rewinding and rewatching the video. What's good audience retention? Good audience retention means that, you know, people are watching at least 50%, you know, 50% is great average view duration. So I think this might be a screenshot of one of my better videos with higher audience retention. But the average view duration, 46%, which is pretty good. And so, you know, the video is 5.51 minutes long, so almost getting 50% audience retention. So another question I want to ask is if you can remember this, is what's the highest audience retention, or what's the highest audience retention you've ever got on one of your videos? Is it 30%, 40%, 50%? If you don't know what's the highest video that got, you know, the video got the highest audience retention, what's your typical audience retention or typical average view duration for a video? So if you go into YouTube Analytics, you can click on See More, and you can see all the videos that have got, you know, you can quickly arrange and see the videos that have got the highest average view duration. So this is an example of good retention, and this is an example of bad audience retention. So this one only got 23.5% average view duration. So you don't want your audience retention graph to look like this, where people, you know, it starts off at 100%, and within a few, maybe first 15 seconds, people are dropping off. So, and by the end, it's down to almost 0%. So only 1.34 minutes out of 6 minutes and 40 was watched. Most people watched only, very small amount of the video. So that, and you can go into YouTube Analytics and you can see where exactly they dropped off. So if you see this kind of bad audience retention graph, you need to find ways to make it much better. So even if you increase it, say you have 23.5% average view duration, maybe next video you can try for increasing it by another 1%, so you get 24.5% or 25.5%. So try to increase it with each video, and then that will help your video get promoted in the search engines by YouTube. So here's what you should be looking for. This is according to the YouTube help file. So I move that down a bit. Do viewers enjoy my videos? That's the question. So the first image you see there's it starts at 100% and the goal is to remain relatively flat throughout. So this means that you've hooked viewers at the beginning and they're mostly watching to the end. So that's the ideal graph that you want to get. The second image is not good. Why are viewers leaving at the beginning of my video? So a sharp drop off within the first 10 or 15 seconds indicates that your video wasn't what your viewers were expected. So maybe they saw the thumbnail, maybe they saw the title, but then they started watching your video and it wasn't what was promised in your thumbnail and title. So revisit your title, your thumbnail, and description to better fit what the video is about. The third image is where they're watching and excuse me. So you see these bumps on the graph. I'm not losing my voice here. But these bumps on the graph show that people are rewinding, rewatching different parts of the video. So dips can mean that your viewers are skipping or leaving the video. So you have to ask the question, did the image or title promise something the video didn't seem to deliver, or the video just took too long to get to the point? And the last image is actually pretty normal. When you look at your audience retention graph, generally it starts at 100% and then you'll see it drop off a little bit because just people, probably seeing your thumbnail, but they're not really interested in the topic and they're clicking off. But so it's normal to see a gradual decline in your audience retention graph. And gradual declines mean the viewers are losing a bit of attention over time. But if you see a very sharp decline, like in the second image, then that means your content is not relating to your viewers. So I think the big lesson here is that when you're, and I'll talk a little bit about this later, is that when you're creating your video, you want to edit out the parts that are boring or where you're waffling. Maybe try to reset the attention of the viewer. And it's pretty tough, when you do a tutorial, like a how-to tutorial. Then I find, you're kind of going through all the different steps in a tutorial, and it's easy to bore people. Maybe you're going into too much detail, and as a result, you're losing the viewers. So I've been kind of experimenting, maybe mix it up with showing your face and get back to the tutorial, or change a different scene or adding some B-roll. So you kind of got to experiment with different ways that you can keep the viewers engaged. Another one is relative audience retention. So this shows your video's ability to retain viewers during the playback by comparing it to all the YouTube videos of a similar length. So it's probably going to be, it's not going to be everybody that's in the same niche. It's just comparing you to all the videos from different niches of similar lengths. But at least it gives you an indication how your audience retention is doing. But I took the screenshot of a video that was getting pretty good audience retention. This was above average. So your goal is to get above 50%, above average on every video that you upload. So it could be above 50% in the beginning, then drop below 50%. But the golden ticket is to make sure your viewers want to watch all the way through your videos as measured by average view duration and watch time. So that's the golden ticket. So ideally, 100% would be good, but if you can get above 50% or 60% relative audience retention, that would be the best. And the way you can see that is you go into, I think it's YouTube Studio Beta, YouTube Analytics. I think click on the reach or might be audience, and then you'll see your audience retention graph. And then there's a drop down there where you can choose the relative audience retention. So with MrBeast, he looks at the average view duration and the average view percentage, or average percentage viewed, AVD and AVP. So average view duration is the estimated average minutes watched per view for the selected content, date, range, region, and other filters. So that's basically your audience retention. And the average percentage viewed, or average view percentage, is the average percentage viewed, is percent of each video the average viewer watched. So it measures your video's ability to hold the viewer's attention for its entirety. And when YouTube realizes your videos can hold people's attention, they'll reward your video with higher search and recommendation rankings. So if I go back to this graph here, let's see if I can. So this audience retention graph, if you go into your audience retention, that's average view duration. You got 46% there. Let's see. Is this okay? This one. So if you go look into relative audience retention, this is under your audience retention graph. Then over on the right, you'll see the average percentage viewed, or average view percentage. And so this gives you an indication of how many people are actually watching your video. So ideally, you want to hold your viewers' attention throughout the video. So if you can get above 50%, that's really great. Another thing you want to do is you want to fulfill your viewers' expectations. So as I mentioned before, the average view duration starts with the thumbnail and the title. So if nobody clicks on your thumbnail, sees your title, clicks on your thumb, nobody's going to watch your video. And the initial drop-off, as I mentioned before, first 15 seconds, if you get that drop-off, that's impossible for your video to go viral. But if you keep up that average percentage viewed or the average view duration or the audience retention all the way through at least 50% of your audience, then there's a stronger possibility that your video is going to do well. And I think everybody wants their video to go viral. So that's what you're kind of aiming for. So you want to give viewers what they expect. They see the thumbnail, they see the title, so give them the content that they expect. Stay on topic throughout your video. Don't waffle through your video. Remove the dull moments. So maybe you can get somebody else to watch your video and see, does it kind of bore you? Is there some place in the video that bores you or is dull? Another point is give payouts at the end of the video. Include some incentive. At the beginning of the video, you could tease them and say something like, stay watching to the end of the video because I'm going to show you a case study where I got this incredible result from one of my videos. Or you could say, stay watching to the end because I'm going to give you a free gift at the end of the video. So give them some incentive to want to watch all the way through your video. And just keep in mind that everybody's different. Everybody's in a different niche. So it's all comes down to experimentation. Try these different points. So what may work for MrBeast may not necessarily work for your own niche, because he's in sort of a what kind of niche would you call it? Kind of a shock niche, I guess. So it's kind of hard, if you're just doing tutorial type videos to shock people during a tutorial. Okay, and Mr. Vio says, to be honest, have to work too much to have success. Yeah, I understand. It's not easy. Like I was at the video conference last week, and a lot of people there that had some have only been on YouTube for maybe a year or 2 years, but their videos have taken off, and other people have been there for many years, and their videos haven't taken off. So there's a lot of factors that go into a successful channel, but you just got to figure out what works. That's why you have to try different things. So like MrBeast here that I'm talking about, gets 40 million views per video, and but he did start, when he started off, he probably didn't get many views at all. So but he figured out what works. So by studying these successful channels, you can incorporate some of the lessons into your own videos. So you want to fulfill viewers' expectations. Okay, here's some thumbnail examples where he's combined a few different images. So when he talked about this particular thumbnail, he said initially the window of his car was small. So when you shrunk the thumbnail down to like the size on your phone, or suggested videos on your phone, you could hardly see the lady. So what he did, he kind of removed the background, removed the window of his car as a background image, and he made it bigger. So he expanded the window of his car, and he also, I think he took a separate image of the lady so he could put it in the big window. So when you're looking at the thumbnail on a small device, then you can still see the woman in the thumbnail. Whereas if he had just kept the same image, the window would be too small, the lady would be too small, etc. So in this way, he combined a few different images. So that's just an idea that you could try. And in this one, he had a very busy background, but the title says spending 24 hours in a city with no laws. So the background was too busy, and he didn't want to change anything in the background. So instead, he just brought a sign in saying no laws, which the expression on his face and the sign immediately captured the content of his video, and as a result, he got many, many millions of views. Some tips for what makes a great idea. So let's see if I go up here. When I talked about the factors, important metrics, click-through rate, average view duration, average view percentage, but he also mentioned content. Let me just see if I got that slide there. So tips for what makes a great idea. It has to be interesting enough to click and also entertaining for a long duration. So I think this really applies to his niche, where he's making the thumbnails interesting. The content is very interesting. He did mention that over the course of a few years, he'd brainstorm for an hour a day for content ideas. So he doesn't do this anymore, but he spent a long time on his thumbnails, long time brainstorming ideas. So if you have a great idea, then that's the key to getting people to watch it. So you may not have that much time, but whatever you're focused on, he suggested to double it. Some editing tips. Editing should be fast-paced, so you want to remove the boring parts that are in your video, front load the video, so place the good stuff at the beginning to spark interest. So if you watch any of his videos, it captures your attention right at the beginning, because majority of viewers are going to decide in the first minute if they're going to keep watching your video. So you've got to make a very good first impression, and ideally tell a story or maintain a good storyline throughout your video. So those are some editing tips. And some other tips and tricks is only get advice from qualified people. So you want to find people that you trust that would give great advice. So say for instance, you're trying to get different opinions on your thumbnail, but maybe people are not graphic designers, then maybe they might say, well, put something like this in your thumbnail, but because they never design thumbnails, it may not be very good. But I think it's always good to get a second opinion, even if you don't have an expert that can give you advice. But in this case, you're saying get advice from qualified people, go above and beyond with everything. If you put a lot of focus and energy into something, then viewers will notice it. You don't want to directly copy someone. So like MrBeast has these points, how he grew his channel. So you don't want to copy his exact thumbnails, but you can definitely take the points that I mentioned in this live stream where you're watching a replay and try to put it into your own videos. And then, if you're in a Facebook group or forum, talk to people that want to improve, that are willing to give advice. So if you're not a member of my Facebook group, then you can go to facebook.com/groups/tube video bootcamp, and you can get feedback on your thumbnails, talk to like-minded people, interact with other people that are there. So if you have any questions about MrBeast's how he got 40 million views per video, and he's definitely a successful, one of the probably not the most successful YouTuber, but he's one of the bigger ones there. I never really went to his videos, but now I kind of know a little bit about him, and it's good to see someone that's really successful, what he focuses on. So those three metrics of the click-through rate, the average view duration, and the average percentage viewed are the three metrics that he looks at and tries to focus on and improve. So if you improve any of those three metrics, then your videos are going to do much better on YouTube. YouTube's going to promote them in suggested videos and the search engines, etc. So you might not get 40 million views, but even if you can get an extra 100 views per video, even that would be great. So I think the big lesson here is that look at, go into YouTube analytics, look at your channel, look at, which videos are getting the high click-through rate, look at the videos that are getting a good average view duration, look at the videos that are getting a high average view percentage, and see what is it in those videos that you did that you could replicate, and try to double down on the videos that are doing well. So I think what are your biggest takeaways from what I gave you today? What is the one big lesson or two big lessons that you would want to implement from this live stream or from this replay? So put that in the comments or the chat. I think that going forward for myself, I think trying to create different versions of thumbnails is good. A/B split testing of thumbnails, and then having a great hook at the beginning, because if most people are dropping off at the beginning of the video, and you can see this in YouTube analytics, then you want to try different hooks. Maybe try teasing somebody at the beginning of the video, or maybe showing something, show the results at the beginning and then explain why afterwards, so you've kind of hooked them at the beginning. Or maybe you can ask a question, or maybe you can do something entertaining, stand on your head or something like that. But people have very short attention spans, but ideally you want to keep them watching all the way through. So then go into your audience retention graph and see the points where they're actually dropping off in your video, and then try to in your next video, then you can make a point of removing that boring stuff, or maybe reset the attention. Oh, and Harley's saying I need to try to add more hooks throughout the video to keep attention. That's a good point. Yeah, so it might be good to have it's good to have a hook at the beginning, but try to keep them hooked throughout the video. So you might think of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 hooks throughout the video. So that's another way to keep them watching throughout the video. So I think it's all a matter of making small tweaks, testing different things, and then seeing, if you can keep get more traffic, get more views, get more subscribers from your videos. I've noticed that, and I didn't address this today, but I noticed that my traffic has been increasing lately, and probably because I've been using playlists. I've linked to, in the cards and end screens, to a playlist so people can binge watch more videos. So I think that's another way they can keep people watching more of your videos. So if they watch one video, then they can, if they watch successive videos in a row, YouTube rewards you for a long watch time. So think about how you can keep people watching. Even if you create a short video of like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, maybe you can create a series of short videos that dive more deeply into your topic, and so you can keep the attention very easily within a 2-minute video rather than a 10-minute video. But then you're bringing them over to another short video. So that's another way that you can experiment with a short video versus a longer video. So because one of the lessons is that, from the video conferences, like if you make longer videos and keep people watching, then that will outdo your competition. But say your video is people only watching 2 minutes of a 10-minute video, then why not try make it a 2-minute video and see if you can get a high audience retention in a 2 or 3-minute video, and then link them to another 2 or 3-minute video. So that's just something to think about that you can experiment with. So, hey, I want to thank everybody for attending today's live stream. If you're watching a replay, if you have any other questions, suggestions, put them in the comments, and hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you in the next video. All the best. Take care.